Slivka.
Here.
Stevenson.
Here.
Stocking. We do have a quorum.
First item is the approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second.
Favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The next item is a concept review for the Crissey Avenue development. This is just a concept review, so we won't be voting on this tonight. Just an opportunity to look at the project and give the applicant some feedback on the part of the public and the commission. Are there items to read into the record?
No.
Do that? Okay.
It's just that.
All right, then the procedure that we'll follow is first the developer will provide an overview of the contemplated development and will present any supporting plans or exhibits. Second, the Plan Commission members will have an opportunity to ask the developer questions. Third, members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, and convey any concerns they may have. Fourth, the developer will have an opportunity to answer questions and respond to any of the comments made. And finally, the Plan Commission will provide the applicant with an informal review, comments, and convey any concerns they may have. We are taking minutes of the meeting, so if you do plan on speaking tonight, we ask that you provide your name and address on the registration sheet located near the entrance of the room and sign in the space provided. We also ask that you state your name and address when you approach the lectern to speak. If you speak multiple times, please state your name each time. Everyone that wishes to speak will be given an opportunity to do so. However, if your comment has already been made or your question has already been asked, it is not necessary to repeat it. I'm going to read the first two paragraphs also. Item number 4A on the agenda is a concept review. The Plan Commission will not formulate a recommendation on the contemplated development. Concept review provides the Plan Commission and the public with an opportunity to ask questions, provide informal review, comments, and convey any concerns they may have. A public hearing would be required before the Plan Commission in the future if the developer decides to submit a formal application for the contemplated development. Notice of a public hearing would be mailed to all property owners within 250 feet of the property and would be published in a local newspaper no less than 15 days prior to the public hearing. At a public hearing, all interested parties would be invited to present testimony for or against the petition and cross-examine witnesses presenting testimony for or against the petition. If there are not any questions, is the developer ready to proceed with the presentation? Please begin by stating your name and address.
Just have a point of clarification
Oh.
before we start. It must be an old
Oh.
script. Anybody within 500 feet
That's
of
what
the
I
subject
thought.
property would be notified if this project moves forward.
250, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
it's
it was
on this new
500,
one.
but-
It's on the back.
That's clear for the record.
This one correct, but I forgot. Oh, I didn't see.
Do we need to read an oath?
It's not a public hearing, so we do not.
Okay.
Should you change Mim's name?
Oh, who am I tonight?
Scott?
You're Scott Stocking.
We know.
Well, if things go badly, I might rather just be stuck.
That's right.
No, this is an honor. Come on. And you're doing so well.
John Lazinski, managing member of Oak Creek Capital Partners, 402 North First Street in Geneva is my address. Thank you for having us here today. We've been working on this assemblage for about a year. This property is actually an assemblage of 3 properties from north to south, from Dr. Kiefer, Fitzpatrick, and the city property that they've historically used as a dump and tree mulch and things like that that have existed there. Our initial concept was, when it came to our attention about this property, was to bring to market something that had the same type of quality and character that we're doing at Park Place in Geneva. But we've had a lot of people come in, love what we have, but want one-story living. So the concept here is to do ranches, 2 floor plans, which would be ranches, one with a master down, which will give you a little more square footage. The site has significant topographic slope from Route 25 or Crissey Avenue to the river. There's roughly about 50 foot of fall on average. So that enables us to plan for English or walkout basements by the river And quite frankly, the concept would be to do 10-foot walkout basements and finish part of that square footage on the lower level. So the units would actually live while the main upper first floor or the second floor in a master down situation, we would size those about 1,850 to about 2,300 square feet. The finished square footage would actually, with finishing the basement, which we would do from the get-go, about 3,000 square feet to about 3,500 square feet. One of the things we found at Park Place, which actually surprised us, and quite frankly, thank God we didn't follow one of the requests from the city council members for going smaller, was all the people that have bought in there are downsizing from homes, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 square feet with basements. And mentally, I know I'm going to be sexist when I say this, but most of the wives couldn't envision going any smaller. We've got hutches we want to keep. We have family heirlooms that they wanted to keep. So actually at Park Place, there we have 4 units ranging in square footage from 2,245 square feet to 2,770 square feet. 18 of the 30 units there are the biggest unit, which if you tell somebody that, that's in the business real estate, you would not expect over 60% of your mix to be the largest unit. It's worked out well from what the community looks like, plus the demographics. So what we did is we came up with a concept to come up with, ranches, duplexes to get some density there. And our initial concept had 26 units. Earlier this year, we entered into a contract to buy the city piece, which is at the south end here. And when we had that discussion with the city, there was a number, not a majority, but a number of the aldermen wanted us to look at creating even more density. And the city's piece is in the TIF district, the 2 northerly pieces are not. And it was thought with the topography of trying to create density down in this area. And I'm always willing to look at things. So what we did is we commissioned both a market study, but also a detailed geotechnical study and environmental study. And while this piece, and you can see where the trees aren't, it has historically been used as a dump site. And there's portions in this area here that, while it may not be garbage or trash, it is structurally not sound to hold up a building. We would need to go down roughly 45 feet in a portion of the site and 10 to 20 feet for another portion. So it becomes really economically difficult to work with, even if with TIF proceeds, as something we talked about early on with the city council. So we came up with the alternative plan, not trying to get density, because quite frankly, we didn't think that was fiscally responsible, even if we were looking at to do that remediation with TIF dollars. But what we tried to do was pull out all the units from where those bad soil was or the fill material was placed. And that actually enabled us to save trees here. All our concepts always had the sidewalk with a pedestrian bridge, which is consistent with the downtown master plan. If I remember right, this is Opportunity Site 6, which would allow not only us to tie the sidewalk system to the bike path and the bridge, which would allow us to tie to north-south to the bike path and pedestrian way along the river, allows us to tie to downtown, but also allows, which we would have to do some more work in this area, to make connections to the east, so the people that live on the near east have a easier, more direct route to Island Park. We did include a small 10-lot parking lot for some people that are going to come to Island Park that don't want to park up further north, but trying not to make it so large where it becomes a detractor for the neighborhood, because at the end of a cul-de-sac. So that's what we did there, and our plan would be we would notch our stormwater management around this area, which allows us to have some separation from the railroad. We realize there's going to be a third leg added to the railroad over the next year to two. They'll be starting on that. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to have high quality homes that are, like I said, ranch or master down, which our market study, which we had after the city council meeting, confirmed what our belief was. Not only in Geneva, but the whole Tri-Cities, that's what the buyers want. That market's way undersupplied, you know, versus something else, like a Park Place townhome just wouldn't work because of the grades, you know, because you're dropping so much on the site. But a condo building, we already have that in Geneva along the river. There's 90 of them. They sell, you know, around 200 to the low threes. You know, so why build more of what you have here? Market study did come back and say there is a market for that type of living if it was a rental program, which I don't know if anyone wants to have mid-level rentals on the river, which again, because of the soil challenges, could be economically difficult to bring to market anyway. So that's our concept. We're trying to work in a lower density fashion. I know when the opportunity site was done, originally there was talk on these properties to have some higher density, and with the neighbor input, it ultimately backed down to just single family with a big parking lot down here. Now the problem with that is you can't access, the yellow is the property line. This area here is owned by IDOT, and it's really the conic section for the fill going up to the bridge. So you can't really get another access going to the south on Crissey because you can't get any sight distance here, nor can you get the right to go across the county's or the state's property. That's why we pulled the roadway up here. Originally, we wanted to line across here from Chalmers, but the geometry really doesn't work with where the IDOT right property is. So we're south of that free right. So our thought is here we got to work with creating either up here or at Chalmers maybe some type of pedestrian crossing so these people can come across and use our pedestrian way to get to the bridge, to the amenities in Island Park. That's kind of the cliff notes of what we're proposing. The price, I should say, pricing probably would be similar to where we're at with at Park Place now. Our bases at Park Place are $449 to $510 today. Give you some idea there. Park Place, our current average price, which we think is going to end up with, we only have 5 more to sell there. Our average price is at $569, $328. Our actual closing prices range from $461,200 to $746,000. So to put that in perspective, when we assembled those 10 properties, it had a combined market value of $1.5 million. We're going to end up with a market value of over 17 million, about 17.1 million when we close the last one. 0 school-age children. 0 children at all, other than, like me, kids that are in college or recently graduated college. So it's been an economic engine for all the taxing bodies. And we would envision the same buyer profile here. Okay.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
The bike path. Obviously, it's a great idea. I love the connection from east to west. But is there not a more direct route? I mean, I kind of picture maybe the residents are kind of annoyed with people riding through there, and you kind of going all the way around. Can we not cut through and be more direct to it?
Yes and no.
Without going through all the properties?
Yes and no. There's this thing called the ADA. You have to have minimum slope. And originally we were trying to bring it, naively, I was thinking the stage area was kind of set up to receive kind of the other side of a bridge. But remember I talked about the fall, it's roughly, like I said, 50 foot of fall. have certain ADA requirements. That's why you see the city's pulling out all the curb ramps at street crossings. I got minimum grade. So if I had to do that, that bike path literally did this. And switched back and used up roughly 3 acres of land. So that was the problem. I mean, the other economic way to do it is, which would be very, very expensive, to run that bridge from here all the way over here. And here, we're anticipating to be about a $500,000 structure. There, I couldn't guess. It'd be several $1 million. So yes, that's kind of why we proposed here to do a sidewalk right behind the curb to pull it tighter, you know, and then we have instead of having a short parkway, then we can do all the landscaping on the house side and then just bring it down on one side and tie it in. The site grades make it very difficult to do it direct. We played with it a lot, quite frankly.
The porches will be facing the river, right? Whether there will
The
be porches,
well, it'd be
decks,
decks.
or, yeah.
The thought is, and you can see, like this square is not quite as deep as these. The thought is this plan would have some type of integral deck / 3-season type room. The thought, you know, just you can look out and use the
Yeah.
look over the river. And again, these all from about here over, and a couple of these as we're coming downhill, they'll all be walkout basements. So again, you'll have a slider or French doors on the lower level, with more than likely a patio underneath the deck or something. We have, and again, to have that environment, you know, for outdoor living and things like that. Where these over on this side, again, we still have the grade working. Our engineers are convinced we can accommodate English basements. So the whole idea is create natural light in the basements. We want to finish those, make another living space down there, maybe a third bedroom or an office or something like that for the way people live. Like in Park Place, our buyer range is really from about 40 to about, I think our oldest resident is 73. You know, a bunch of divorcees, but mostly moved down people that want to stay in the area, don't want maintenance, want the lifestyle, walk to town. So we're just trying to do the same thing that we accomplished there, but a different product type to hit a different segment of the marketplace.
My last question is about guest parking spots. Are we hitting what we're supposed to be doing with the 10 extra spots down there? Or is that not meeting?
I think we meet it without them.
We don't require guest parking. We require 2 spaces per unit. So with a 2-car garage or the driveway, that would be
We
met.
have 4.
I think the parking that's provided at the south end of the site, the idea is that would be some public parking and kind of a new trailhead to Island Park.
Is there other spots for cars on the driveway? Like if they,
Right, you know, right now we have it set back, so you'd have at least 2 on the driveway, 2 in the garage, so you'd have 4. It is a standard city street. We're asking for a reduction in the right-of-way width, which is what we partially eliminate by putting the sidewalk in closer instead of having a small parkway. But it is a standard 30-foot street, so we would be able to accommodate parking at least on one side of the street.
okay.
We're not going to get rid of cars. We've got a plan for cars.
Okay, thank you.
Would you speak into the microphone when you do?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know you're getting in conversation with them, but then we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just
You got to give me Mr.
Recording.
Microphone to walk around with.
Other questions? Yes, Ron?
This is Paul or David. What about the turnaround for emergency equipment? Do they have to be able to turn around in that
Yeah.
cul-de-sac at the end?
They would, and we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet with an auto turn exhibit, but we would have to verify that those maneuvers work.
Okay.
And that's
Right
just-
now, that's a
It looks
standard
tight.
city cul-de-sac. You know, so it's planned as a standard city cul-de-sac. We may need to combine the parking lot if they need a bigger radius into the design of the cul.
Right.
You know, fire trucks like to go over curbs, so we can work with that. I'm pretty comfortable with that. We did meet with the fire marshal a number of months ago on that. And when we get to the point with more detail, we'll be revisiting them.
And that's the same way with the on-street parking too. We'd have to look and see, how it lays out with hydrants and other things as far as if they're able to do the maneuvers on that too.
Could you do more parking?
Yes. But why?
Because you've got Trailhead there, and it would kind of be a neat thing.
I mean, I picture people going to events at the park, probably parking here, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that, to a degree, that's what we're trying to not have. Because if you create a big parking lot at the end of a cul-de-sac, it's just gonna not be positive for the neighborhood. We have talked with staff, there's a parking lot on 38, just east of 25, that almost never has a car in it. I've seen one car in it once since they actually pointed out the parking lot. So what we've talked about is possibly using that and incorporating some signage, because it's 2 blocks away, as a way to use that for those events at Island Park. It's close by, it's signage, we can tie the two together.
Where?
Is this the one across from what used to be Mill Race and the cyclery shop?
It's just east of 25, you got the shop at the corner.
Right.
As you go up, it's right there, rectangular.
Oh, by the bread company?
There's the law office with Miro there.
The bread company.
Yeah.
Couple of
That is a city-owned lot that is also within the city's TIF district, so it is hopefully going to be redeveloped at some point, because it is an underutilized lot.
Okay. All right, that was my first question. Second question was, are these duplexes, I was reading, how many of them will have a first floor master?
All of them. They're either gonna be set up for a ranch or a master down, which would have a second story for a second, third bedroom and a loft. But they're all intended to have the master on the main level.
Oh, cool.
So with the master down, typically when somebody buys a master down, they're planning for, oh, the kids are coming back, we need a place for kids, grandkids to stay. So they're willing to put them upstairs, but they want to live on the main level themselves. So the intent is, and we're only offering that just to get to a little higher square footage. Because with a box, you can only do so many designs on a ranch floor plan. So it gives us a way to offer a third floor plan.
Oh, cool. Great, thank you.
John, question. For starters, just where it is now, I know it's real early. I too like the 10 or fewer parking spaces. Even if I lived in there, of course, I would not want cars constantly in and out, and being parked there at all hours of the day and whatnot. But the question with the path then, and then the bridge, once it's on Island, what is the plan then? Is that going to loop around on the bend there and then meet up with the existing path around the park, or straight through?
That's obviously a detail we got to work out with the park district. Right now, this is really the picture here is to confer the concept that we want to get here. We clearly got a plan for and work with the park district how to take this ending point, tie to the trail. You've got that
Parks right
tot
there.
lot there. So it's got to go from here to here. And I'm sure if I drew a line this way, or this way, they're going to have opinions on how they want to do it.
Sure.
But that's the idea, as part of that bridge and trail connection system, that it ultimately connects to the trail. Because that's the whole idea, because quite frankly, and I'm just going to point to a house, and I don't know who lives here or anything, but with this connection, walking to the train station becomes real easy. It's probably a a mile walk at that point. And that's one of the things, quite frankly, that, because you start thinking about it, when you first start thinking about the property and the whole idea of the bridge came up, I viewed it as a major negative, because people are going to park there. But the more you think about it and the connectivity to town, that's what people want. That's why we've been successful at Park Place. And through the last 2 years as we sold, it's just been reaffirmed day after day. Our buyers want to be able to walk to town. Our buyers like their wine. They go downtown, They have dinner, they have a bottle of wine, they can walk home, safely walk home. And it's a great environment. And we're trying to do the same thing here with just a little different product that we know there's a demand for. We probably got a list of maybe 200% more than the number of units we have here that have come into Park Place, and they'll call them up. Do you have something yet? Do you have something yet? Get us something, any of the Tri-Cities with a ranch. And I only want to build, I'll develop pieces that we sell to other builders, but I only want to build on unique pieces like we did at Park Place that we can do something I don't think a public home builder would do, or the real little builder won't do because it's too large.
You had mentioned earlier, in regards to Park Place, that it's maintenance-free living.
Yes.
Is that the?
That is the intent here. The
Also
HOA would do the landscaping, exterior maintenance. Like Park Place, the only thing the homeowners need to do is replace their front doors or windows. The windows there are guaranteed for life to us and the first buyer. Because with my home I had before I lived here, I replaced all the windows at 10 years because the seals start going bad. So that was something we want to do. So yeah, the intent is maintenance-free living, lock and leave like at Park Place. We got a good percentage. They're gone part of the year.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Fred.
Interesting plan, but I'm kind of curious about the entrance and exit to this proposal. You've got Bennett Street, which merges into Crissey Avenue, and I travel that road every day, mostly going south towards Batavia. And the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, but if anybody does 30, I'd probably be driven off the road if I did 30. It seems like it's awfully close to that merge when you're coming southbound on Bennett, and then you merge on because you got the right-hand turn, no stop, and you got the people coming off of Crissey going southbound. That looks a little dangerous to me. I don't know if you've...
Our traffic engineer looked at it, and it's the same traffic engineer that did the
Park
road
Place?
diet here on Route 31.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, originally we wanted to be here,
Right.
be further here. But the problem is, one, the IDOT property here, as well as you come further south, the view, you drive it every day, you start going up that grade.
Right.
And because the horizontal curve here, you get to a point you have trouble seeing longer distance either way.
Right.
If you come into this driveway now, and I've done it a couple times, coming out, from both horizontal and vertical geometry, you have tough sight distances both ways.
Right.
So what we wanted to do, then we'd start moving it north, trying to stay as far away from this as possible,
That merged.
but be able to increase our sight distance in both directions, both from a vertical geometry standpoint as well as a horizontal geometry standpoint. Our engineer said this is probably the best place for an access, not only to serve the two properties, but even the city piece. Because right now, like the city piece, you couldn't develop that on your own
Right.
because you can't get access. So all of these kind of got to tie to one point. And will it need to be, when we get it with IDA, will it need to move 20 or 30 feet one way or the other? It very well may.
Okay. Now, question I have about the 6 units that face the Fox River. Are they in a floodplain?
The good thing about that is none of the property is even close to a floodplain.
Okay.
When we had that flood here, 8 weeks ago, and there was
Right.
about 2 foot of water on Island Park, it barely touched the top of the bank here. We have such a great slope here, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, we do have the yellow is the outline of the property, and this is really about the city piece. So the gross acreage does include some of the property that is in floodplain, that obviously we're not gonna be able to do anything with, because that's coming from the city, and that just ties to historic deeds. But once you get to the grass, the slope is amazing, and I've got, maybe I didn't bring it, but maybe I did.
What do you think the vertical is, John, in the back of those?
That's what I'm trying to read. I brought a small plan, but to give you an idea, our lowest contour going down to the water is 671, and we're projecting our walkout elevation to be 699, 29 feet, right? 28 feet. And then that's the basement elevation. Then the top of the foundation would be at 709. So just give you an idea how much it's really falling. And the elevation, oh God, I could use a magnifying glass.
You've got glasses on.
It's like 732, 733 is the elevation. Where's my little pointer? Right there where we hit the road. So from here down, as we come through, this elevation of this top foundation is 726.5. The walkout elevation here, we're planning for 709, and we're down here at 671. Just to kind of give you, we're going to have some, even though we're using the basements, you know, for helping to eat up some grades, we're going to have some retaining walls here. Yeah, I'm pretty confident our landscape architects can design something that's going to be nice, and we're going to be able to work that into the landscaping. But we got. This isn't typical Chicago farmland that's flat, and 2 foot of grade is a lot.
Other questions?
No.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
So this will be a public street,
Yes.
and the bike path and the bridge who will maintain that?
That we got to work out those details. It was in the, like I said, the master plan for the city, so we're planning on that. I figured from this point north, the sidewalk and the public street is obviously the public street, and snow plowing and all the sidewalk as well as the driveways would be the HOA. From the parking lot down, you know, we got to figure that out. Will it go to the park district? Will it go to the city? Will it be a combination of HOA, city, park district? That's kind of to be determined. But it was called for in the master plan, so we wanted to respect that.
Yeah, on the parking, I almost think, well, more could be better. I almost think none could be better.
No,
just in.
That's kind of why we went with 10.
But even at, and even at 10, it still presents that there is some parking there. But I feel like when there is an event, you could get a tremendous amount of cars coming down there and then having to turn around because the parking is full, and actually increase the traffic for the residents.
Even on the side of the street, if there's parking on there.
You know, that was really intended for when mom wants to go to that park, and she's 4 blocks away, and she's driving there, taking the stroller out so she can walk to the park and not have to cross, 25. So it's really not intended for those big events, even though if you have it, they will come.
And then, just because it was, area was used for a city dump, you mentioned environmental was done. Are there environmental issues with the south part of the property?
There is some geotechnical issues with the fill. Like I said, because it was just put in and dumped, it wasn't compacted. We've got some structurally unsound soils down to 45 feet. In some of the stratas, when we did a phase 2 environmental, there's some stuff that in today's condition not being used is not an issue. For putting residential on top of it, you would have to clean up, but that's kind of pretty minor, and that's actually would be handled with any earthwork we'd have to do to solve the geotechnical issues.
Okay, thanks.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First, they continue to talk about the parking issue. As you pointed out, this provides a very nice connection for folks on the east side of the river to get into town, to get to the train station. I am concerned that the residents will be unhappy when there are folks parking along their street most days, because it's just so convenient. It really is the closest parking to Island Park that will be available. So I think some real thought needs to go into how the parking is going to be handled. I think it could become a problem to the residents. The other thing is, question to city. This was originally designated that the city's property would be open space. Were there some specific plans for the use of that property? Or was there a reason that it was going to be open space? Is there something that would have been developed that would have allowed for more river use or something? What was the thought behind that?
Well, the master plan always showed the city's piece being a parking lot and a new trailhead to Island Park. Because it was a city-owned piece, we knew the historic use of it. We were unsure of the conditions of the soil. So we thought that could be a project that we could actually accomplish as the city without partnership. Since then, obviously, the TIF has been established, and there has been some other properties that John's been able to assemble that make another project viable.
So really, the use that is shown there is pretty close to what the city had in mind, even when it was going to retain ownership and develop it as open space.
I mean, originally, the downtown master plan had a concept for a much larger parking lot and trailhead. I think it was probably closer to 75 spaces. I mean, it was pretty much the whole use of the city's piece. And actually, originally, the downtown master plan included in the concept a potential location for City Hall, the library, or even a multifamily unit to the north, and then showed the single-family homes to the north staying or being converted eventually to like row home development. That concept was amended about a year and a half later after some input from adjoining property owners and people in the area that would like to see those homes to the north stay single family and eliminate those other potential uses.
Plus, I think the parking lot that we would be developing here helps us relieve a little bit of the third rail going through. Is going to have an impact on the amount of parking we have, that we still may end up at a deficit even though we've added a third deck and another parking lot over on the west side. There's still potential that all the spaces running along the line could actually reduce the number of parking. So the thought is that this also could provide parking, just mainly for events for Island Park and around, but just that we have some parking available for events.
I'm sorry, Paul, you were saying this is advantageous from the city's point of view?
We were
spots?
probably thinking of a larger.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions from the commission, then we'll open it up. Questions from the audience? Is there a list?
There had
signed up so far. Yeah, my name is John Kiefer, and my wife Christine is here with us. We live in the house that's right at the very top, like in the middle of the yellow line, the smaller building.
Could you state your address, please, for the record?
Okay. Yeah, our address is 210 South Bennett.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lisinski's kind of pointing to our house, and then that's our garage right above the yellow line. And we've been there probably 35 years or so. And our interest in this is it kind of gives us an opportunity to stay in our house as opposed to the previous plan that was put out in 2013 that we were able to have modified. But I just wanted to say that my wife and I are in support of Mr. Luczynski and his partner's plan. And I wanted to maybe let you know a little bit about the property. I think it's something.
I think it just went to sleep. You probably just have to shake it.
Move the mouse.
There you go.
All right. Well, the first thing, the question is about the height. Where the railroad tracks are, like toward the east end of that development, it's level. And then where the railroad tracks are at the footbridge down there, that's the trestle, so that's over 100 feet high, so that's, I imagine, so that's the kind of grade we're dealing with.
There's a lot of grade.
So it's pretty steep, and we've never, the highest, maybe in 2015, the river, if that was the highest flooding we've had recently, maybe the river might have come to one of those the interior yellow line along the Fox. It never really comes up on that land because the grade is so steep. One Saturday, Alderman Swanson came over and he wanted to walk through there, and he and I walked through there, and kind of when you get down to when you walk along the river about where that parking is and you try to climb the hill, you can't do it. It's all unstable earth, and I think that's the portion that Mr. Lusinski was saying he's not going to put any homes there because that's pretty unstable. So that's why the homes are kind of scrunched maybe more to the north. Where the present exit is onto Route 25, that's where the driveway that the McBains used when the McBain house was there. And it's usable. The closer driveway to the north, that is tough to try to get out of there because the cars really come around the corner pretty fast. But that one would be usable. Just to the south of kind of along Route 25, there's a big oak there. That's the tree of Geneva that's on our, when we used to have window stickers. Scott McBain is the son of Neil McBain, who used to work for Leo Burnett, and he designed it. And that big oak is still there right along Route 25. One thing is the river's a little bit more shallow, that kind of that vague gray stuff on the north, it's all water lilies. And it used to be that the mill race meant that water would come from the dam and race along where the mill race was and empty into that part of the river. Well, I think in the middle 70s, the mill race Inn got permission to fill in that mill race so the water doesn't come in there. We're starting to see a little dry land in there for the first time. So I don't know if that's the Army Corps of Engineers or somebody that could address that filling in. And then another concept might be that might maybe it would save our developers $500,000 is you can walk along that footbridge at the lower left corner without going on the island park. You can walk along the river, and then eventually come onto the land there. It's very rough. Occasionally fishermen will do it. I've only done it once or twice if I had to get home in an emergency, but maybe, I don't know if that'd be less expensive to put a path there, because once you're on the south end of the bridge, then you can cross under the tracks to the train station. So, but I think our main interest in having this come in is it gives us more of a confidence that we can stay where we are in our house. Thank you.
Matt Kroll?
Hello, Matt Kroll, 217 Chalmers Street. My house is the one that was getting pointed to earlier, so it was a good example. And you hit the nail on the head. We moved there about 5 years ago, and one of the things we checked before we moved was how would I walk to the train, because I was at the time going downtown every day. And so today I go south on, no, actually, right to the Fox, the Fox Run path that comes around. So I really like this plan. It'll probably shave 10 minutes or so off my walk. I suspect, I know plenty of my neighbors come down Chalmers Street and take that same way. So I think that's definitely pretty nice. I guess I was wondering too why the bridge was so far south and why it wasn't further up north, but I guess that sounds like a ADA compliance and a grading issue. So that makes sense to me as well. The density is right in the right. It's more density, but not too much, which a lot of my neighbors were very concerned with in some of the original master plan work that was being done. So I think it hits the mark there. Probably the only grief that you might get is my two neighbors along Crissey. Now that there's going to be an entrance, yep, those two right there. Now that there's an entrance right in front of their houses, I could see them not being super excited about that. And my one neighbor was concerned that they would put it at Chalmers Street and then we'd get a stoplight or something and there'd be a stoplight in front of her house. So that's just maybe food for thought there. And I guess if I could build on that, in general, the last time we were here, we were talking about a road diet for Route 25, which a lot of us liked for some of the reasons that I was hearing earlier, which is people just like an expressway, right? Because it's
Worse.
one of the few spots on Route 25 that opens up to 4 lanes,
Right.
and it closes back down to 2 lanes real quick again, and so people use it. And I hear folks revving their engines to get around,
To go up the hill.
go up the hill, and then get around somebody really fast before it goes
Right.
back down to 2 lanes. So my only input there is if there's still support for that road diet, because there certainly was in the neighborhood, I guess why wouldn't we think about these things in coordination? I don't know if it would help or not, but if we know that we're going to be doing work at that entrance, we know the neighborhood wants a road diet, we know this intersection here is not the greatest thing in the world. If we're going to be tearing up that whole area there, why not think about it all at once? Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I do have one. Okay, to use the picture as a question on John on the parking right here. I'm not sure. I mean, physically what's here, but if you were going to put 10, 15, 20 spaces, is it possible to move it further south? I mean, like as far south as possible, so it's kind of almost doesn't exist in the neighborhood.
No. And the reason
That answers that.
is this doesn't show.
John, could you come to the mic, John? Sorry.
Sorry, John.
I'm too informal sometimes. What this plan doesn't show, just for ease of presentation purposes, at the scale, in this zone here, we were notching in our stormwater management. And I wanted to have, the native planting stormwater basins that are what you gotta do now. Use that for separation between the parking lot and the bike path, but allow us to save the trees here and these trees here.
Sure.
So, yeah, we can expand it, but then I've got to start taking out some of these trees here. And quite frankly, this area here, you can see where the fill's been placed. This area is native, so there isn't fill here. So those trees are actually helping to keep that big slope in place. And I'm cautious of starting to take them out because there's a chance that can slough off and wind up in the river, which then is a bigger issue. So, yeah, we probably can expand it, but here and around in here, we were notching in our stormwater management. Now, most engineers will tell you, right now, everything that hits this site runs off because of slope. And some engineers say you want to get it in the river, get it downstream, you don't need stormwater management. We're planning for that, but as we get into the details and if the city engineer says you don't need as much stormwater, then we can move that kind of around. But I got it at this point planned for, if not just pure stormwater management, water filtration, as we're taking water and filtering it as it goes into the river.
Thank you.
I have a question. The gentleman here who lives right to the north, you mentioned about that rough path that goes, follows that part of the river.
Right here?
It runs just on the southern aspect of the river. It's kind of just a footpath that fishermen use.
Right.
And you can use it occasionally. It's pretty rough. And, that might be an option instead of a bridge.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I think that would, if you could look into that, I think I would prefer that over the bridge.
Do you know whose property that is, John? Is that
I
the
think
railroad?
the Forest Preserve's got, There's an outlot along here with the Forest Preserve, or Park District, yes, that has that. Right here, we possibly can work with, so you probably gotta build something like a boardwalk type thing that goes over and,
I thought that suggestion was very good. You know, I prefer that over the bridge, so if you can look into that, I think that would be a good thing. Doesn't hurt to ask.
well, oh yeah, no, without a doubt. I don't know if it'd be any cheaper in the end,
Well, I'm not
but
looking at
it'll be a different look.
yeah,
You know, obviously, we replicated what was in the opportunity plan.
right.
And to a degree, I just like the idea of getting it further away from the railroad tracks that are gonna get, even though they're gonna get wider to the south. you're gonna
Correct.
have ultimately three lines here. So moving it away was kind of why I thought that. Because originally,
Yeah.
my first idea was to put it right along the tracks, and again, I sold myself on getting further away. But we'll look at it.
Yeah, well, I know Brad brought up the question about, you know, the maintenance of the bridge, and then also, you know, where does it go from where the blue line stops over to the path,
Right,
which is on
here
the.
it just ties right into the path directly,
Yeah.
the north-south pathway.
Yeah, but if you could look into that,
We'll
that
be
would
happy
be
to.
interesting, yeah. Thank you.
But I like the idea of the bridge. I think
I think it adds a nice aesthetic too.
I think it's got an aesthetic and it creates a place and it's not like an afterthought.
Well, we can look at it, you know, it doesn't hurt to study it, and come back and say, here's the options. I suspect a boardwalk probably in the end would be more expensive, just because the length will be so much longer here that
Right.
we're playing with the grade.
And the bridge is more of a, it's more aesthetic.
And
It
you've
is.
got two, you know, this I'm thinking is more of a, you know, prefab, metal bridge that you see built on golf courses a lot. We're going to the north, you got those old, heavy concrete bridges that tie the bike path together, so this would be a little different. But again, we can look at it.
It'd be pretty.
Anything else? What would be the procedure from this point?
And I think we could just ask if you think you've received enough feedback and you have a comfort level on
The one thing I
Perception
would
of this.
like to talk about, because when the city council approved the sale of the property, it's like I said, some of the members really were pushing for us to look for much higher density than this. And we did do a concept which pretty much had this plan plus a 30-unit condo building. Now, we feel, because of geotechnical issues, that's economically not feasible, but I would like to get an idea from the Plan Commission about density. And one of the things I told the alderman, I said, I'll study it, but I want it clear that you guys are asking us for more density. I don't want to be proposing it, because we all seen what happened, you know, with other real high density proposals. They sound good before you get into the public hearing process. So I want to just understand from you, would you have that appetite for higher density? Because
I like this.
Yeah.
I don't want to see more density. I think this is great.
Okay.
If you can do it.
I'll figure a way out.
Where did they want the condo building?
And again, we had the concept before we got the soil borings. Basically, we flipped this cul-de-sac, so you lost that condo building, and it was an L-shaped condo building down here. I mean, that would really affect, obviously,
You gotta go
the tip.
drive past all those other. Get into it.
See, it looked like. You have the cul-de-sac when we did the drop off, so the condo building here.
Where was the driveway, John? Same?
Well, this drive was a drive into parking on the lower level, and then the bike path did this. So this road was
yeah, I was gonna say,
John, we really need
we're still in a
to
public
have
meeting.
the,
And it's okay, I was gonna say,
everybody
use
hear what you're saying.
Gonna say, maybe you want to show
Can we,
them over
is there a
there.
way to put it up there?
No, but maybe just pass it around.
Oh, yeah, we'll just pass it around. So, I mean, that was a concept we had. I'm not asking for it partly because I don't think the TIF would be fiscally strong enough to do all the soil remediation. But it's also not consistent with what we've heard from the neighbors that spoke the day we got the contract. But it was something the board asked, so I came up with the concept, and I even did a market study. The market study really said there is a need for that type of housing. It's not deep for sale product, because you have some already in town. The bigger need would be for a rental of that type, which, as an investor, has, you know, some romantic aspects to it. But 30 units, I backed away from it. My gut was I would prefer to do this. I think it's more fiscally responsible from a TIF standpoint. But I also wanted just to have the discussion on density, because, and again, we may get there and present the facts on soils and things like that, and the people that were asking for density back away from that thought also.
Fred, maybe you
But-
could put that on the end of the table.
But I just wanted to, I wanted to have the discussion with you, because obviously if you get on that road, you get the first hit of the public on that.
I might have missed a few comments you had there, but you said the market study showed there was a demand for rentals, not for,
There is a demand, there is a place in the market for condos geared basically for the empty nesters, but there's a much bigger need for that type of housing as rental units, not for sale units.
and
Right.
is that something that was discussed for this site, rentals, or was it always going to be for sale units?
We've always proposed doing duplexes for sale. We looked at what the options would be if we were trying to get more density, because that's what some of the councilmen asked us to do. You know, once you looked at the soils, the environmental, quite frankly, unless the city really wants to have a big TIF district to do the soil remediation, I don't think it's fiscally responsible. So quite frankly, if we got pushed to do higher density at condo building, we would not be proceeding.
Ma'am?
Yes.
There's a gentleman who'd like to speak.
Yes, would you come to the mic and state your name and address, please?
Sergey Nagaitsev, 590 Spring Court, which is much further east of here. So I wanted to make a quick comment. I would like to point out that this bridge here has pedestrian walk on both sides. So we use the east side to connect to the bike path, but the similar pedestrian walkthrough is on the west side as well as on the east side, which ends in essentially in the grass on both sides. There is no path. There is no sidewalk on. So in theory, when one can think about extending a sidewalk connecting this west side bridge to the bike path, just like it is on the east side, which is very convenient. And not have a bridge at all. So this, instead of having this, you would just have a bike path or a sidewalk going across this, and then on the other side connecting to the bike path.
So if you didn't have a bridge and you had the sidewalk instead, then there would be no reason for parking.
Correct. So that and that connects. It doesn't make your walk to the train station shorter, but it is an option.
Could you
Thank you.
restate your name, please, for the record, or spell it perhaps?
Sergey, Sergei, Nagaitsiv, 590 Spring Court.
Yeah. I'm so used to just talking. to do that, also, we'd have to just coordinate with IDOT, because obviously, where's my point? They own this zone here outside the right-of-way. But I think they're always looking for ways to increase conductivity and pedestrian access. So that's a third alternative, I think, to look at.
If there's a serious study on a road diet too, that would be a component of that study.
Right.
A bike path.
Last February-ish, before you got, council tabled the road diet consideration, one of, actually Semcon, who's our engineer, who did the road diet with Brent Coulter on 31, we started looking at those concepts of how we can intertie it, because quite frankly, the feeling at that time was to get a road diet, we really, because the traffic volumes really aren't there, to justify it, was in some way enhancing the pedestrian system along that east to west, north to south, from 38 through the bridge. And that's something, I had a couple talks with Randy Buss on, back then. And obviously at that time, that's when the city was looking for proposals and then kind of tabled it as the election got closer. But, and I think it was Matt that said it, but I would be all for working in conjunction with the road diet, because I think the pedestrian system tying to our property is just a positive for the whole area.
I think if you pursue this further and come back, we would be interested in hearing all of these options that have to do with the pedestrian and bike access and the pros and cons of each of them.
Yeah. Yeah, what I may come back to is with just a pedestrian plan, just to talk through.
Yes, Fred.
Getting back to the original question he had was about the density. I'm a little intrigued by it. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you're correct, and I'm not second guessing anything you say about the suitability of the land for it. But if it was identified at some point, it seems, and there's a need for it in our housing stock, it seems like it might be a good place for it, even if that might not be.
You'd be comfortable with rentals that way?
I'm saying I'd like to hear more about it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just trying to solicit comments, because I know when I get to the next committee, they're going to ask that question.
I mean, on face value, I say, yeah, I'm comfortable with rentals. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm generally okay with the density, the way you've shown it for this particular property.
I like it too.
I like it as is.
Yeah, agreed. As is.
I'd be afraid to go higher because of the environmental stuff. That scares me, and the amount of work that it would take, and what it would take to maintain that and do it. Ugh. I think you're going to get into some real trouble.
My back of the paper calculations, and again, that's not getting the structural engineers involved yet, had roughly 60,000 yards of material that would have to leave this site. Roughly 4,200 truckloads. Just to put it in perspective. And then we got to bring in stone or clay or something like that. Maybe not that much, because we'd be digging basins. It's just to put it in perspective. It's easy, you can fix the dirt and spend money. But those are real trucks that are going to be on the streets.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
It doesn't sound good.
Not for rentals, no. No, we don't need that.
Anything else? Enough direction?
Thank you for your time, and
Thank you. Oh,
we'll
wait,
keep
another
working.
comment.
I just wanted to be, so did I, yeah, sorry. Matt Kroll, 217 Chalmers Street. I just want to be real clear. Did we say that we were going to look at the road diet at the same time as this development, or not?
That's not really a decision
The
as
planning
commission,
commission
or we can make it a staff level, but that is something the city council would have to authorize us to pursue.
So how does that happen? What's the process for that?
We'd have to do probably a budget amendment to fund that study, or work in partnership with this development to take a closer look at it.
Okay.
But they do read these minutes and
Okay.
watch this, so
That's
they're
where I
going
was
to have
going.
some input, so they'll see that too.
Good. I was looking for the catalyst. Okay. Thank you.
John? what you need?
Yes,
As far as
ma'am.
feedback. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
One
We have one other item on the agenda, consideration of proposed amendments to the Plan Commission bylaws. Paul or David, do you want to give a little background of?
I mean, these are the amendments that we discussed, I think, back in June, and then formally presented at the meeting we had 2 weeks ago regarding remote attendance, the order of our agenda to make sure we're approving the agenda each evening, and then not requiring the bifurcated process, just kind of eliminating that, and then using that as needed instead of having to go through that motion more often than not to waive the bifurcated process. Those were the key changes. Then as we were reviewing it, we caught a couple of their typos. So if there's any questions on those, otherwise we would need to have a motion to approve them.
So now we make a motion for a bifurcated process if we want it.
No, yeah. So if these are changed, then if we feel like we need another 2 weeks to make our findings of fact and kind of digest the testimony, we would just say, I move to have our deliberation session on a date certain in the future. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions?
I move we approve this.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, Celeste.
Case,
Aye.
Radish,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Whiting,
Aye.
Schlichta.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I can, unless there's public comment. The October 12th, it doesn't appear that we have anything noticed for that. I mean, we don't have anything noticed for it, so there shouldn't be anything for that. We are expecting to have a meeting on October 26th. We're 1009 East State Street, which is the old U.S. Bank that's been vacant for a while. Is asking to be rezoned so a jewelry shop could open out of that location. So that seems to be it's not asking for a drive-through. They're only doing the rezoning on the property. They're not doing any site plan changes or anything at this time. And then also the Plan Commission reviews a development that's on Brundage Road because it's within 1.5 miles of Geneva. So we're going to bring a plat through. It's a 3-lot subdivision. They're large, 2-acre estates or whatever like that size. But anyway, the Plan Commission would do a review on that, and we expect that about that date too.
Is it off of Kessler Road?
No, this is sort of behind Prairie Green.
It's about halfway between Kesslinger and Route 38 on the east side. There's like a little creek there, and then there's an existing farmstead that's part of the subdivision, so that would remain, and then we create 2 new lots.
Okay. Still on a quick way to prove it.
Correct. Yeah, its address is Elburn there, so.
And it's
So-
October what?
That meeting is October 26th, and it looks like, as I said, October 12th, we do not have anything at this time.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
All right, yeah.
Tim, well done.
I think I
Great
picked up a
job,
lot of
man.
little things.